The life cycle of angiosperms, or flowering plants, has several different stages. Starting with a mature flowering plant, the angiosperm must be fertilized through pollination and double fertilization. After fertilization occurs, the ovule begins to develop into an egg. While the egg begins to further develop into a seed, the ovarian wall thickens, forming a protective layer around the seed. This layer is commonly known as fruit. Next, the seeds must somehow be dispersed, either through animals or wind. Finally, the seed is replanted and begins to grow. Once it becomes a mature angiosperm, the cycle then repeats itself. The angiosperm life cycle begins with a mature angiosperm containing flowers. The mature flowering plant contains both female and male reproductive organs. The male reproductive organs are known as the stamen. Carpel or pistil are the terms used when referring to the female reproductive organs of a flowering plant. A germinated pollen grain is placed on the stigma, completing the next phase of the flowering plant life cycle. The female reproductive organ of a flower is broken into three parts: the stigma, the style, and the ovary. The reproductive organ as a whole is known as the carpel or pistil. The stigma is the top portion of the carpel and is very sticky, which allows the pollen to attach to it. Insects often contribute to the transfer of pollen. They become covered in the pollen, a powdery substance, and when they land on the flower, the sticky stigma catches the pollen. Once the pollen is attached to the stigma, it then begins to travel down the pollen tube. The pollen grain then deposits 2 sperm cells into the embryonic sac, which is located within the ovule. Both the pollen tube and the ovule are part of the female reproductive organ. This is the beginning stages of double fertilization. Double fertilization includes the fertilization of 2 sperm nuclei, producing an embryo and an endosperm, both crucial to the survival of the plant. One of the 2 sperm nuclei is used to fertilize an egg cell located in the embryonic sac. The embryonic sac can be found within the ovary, the bottom portion of the carpel. This fertilized egg then develops into an embryo, which will further develop into a seed. This is only step 1 in the process of double fertilization. In order for the future seed to survive, an endosperm must be produced as a result of fertilization from the second sperm cell. The other sperm cell also fertilizes another female cell to produce endosperm, a nutrient-storing tissue. The endosperm is used to provide nourishment to the embryo. With the fertilization of the second sperm nuclei, the process of double fertilization is now complete. Angiosperms must have this double fertilization process to ensure the seed's survival. After fertilization occurs, the entire ovule becomes a seed. In other words, the seed becomes enclosed within the ovary. While the seeds are developing, the ovary wall begins to thicken. This provides a protective enclosed space for the seed. This enclosure separates angiosperms from gymnosperms. Gymnosperms have a naked seed, meaning they lack a protective ovary. Their seeds do, however, have a protective coating. What we know as fruits are actually thickened ovarian walls. Anything containing a seed is actually a fruit. A pea pod is an example of what we commonly refer to as a vegetable. However, in reality, it is a fruit. The pod is the built-up ovarian wall, and the peas are the protected seeds. Not only do fruits protect the seeds, they also help with seed dispersal, and an important step in the life cycle of an angiosperm. One way flowering plants scatter their seeds is through wind dispersal. Some plants depend on this form of dispersal as the only way to distribute their seeds. Most plants that depend on wind dispersal have very light seeds, making it easier for the wind to carry them further away. Another characteristic of seeds dependent on wind dispersal is the shape or growth of the seed. They either have some sort of growth that helps them act as a parachute when the wind blows them, or they have a wing-shaped growth allowing them to move further away when the wind blows. Because many angiosperms produce plump or juicy fruits, many animals depend on them as a food source. The fleshy portion of the fruit, or the ovary, is easily digested. However, the seeds pass through the digestive tract untouched. The animal then deposits the seeds later in a different location from where the seeds were ingested. Along with the seeds, the animal provides an important source of fertilizer. Through the many ways of dispersal, the seed should end up far away from the parent plant. Here the seed remains dormant. When the weather warms up, the dormant seed is activated and germination begins. The seed will need plenty of water and sunlight to grow into a seedling. The seedling continues to grow and eventually develops into a mature angiosperm. This is the final stage of the life cycle of a flowering plant before the process is repeated.